Do I have any question on this, please? Any question? Now, let me quickly summarize this again. I said project phase, or what is regarded as a milestone, is a collection of logically related activities usually resulting in the completion of a major deliverable. And I said that major deliverable is really what we're calling a milestone. The collection of tasks that after they are being done, they deliver to that milestone is what we call a phase. So there could be a slight difference in trying to explain what a phase is and what a milestone is. A milestone is a result of a project phase. The major deliverable we get from carrying out a project phase is a milestone, right? Organizations performing projects usually divide each project into several phases to improve management control and to provide links to ongoing operations. The phases may be sequential. Like I said, you have to finish one phase before you go to another. The phases might be iterative. That means there is a cycle of events that you keep repeating to have different releases of the product or the project deliverable, or it could be overlapping. In a case where you have two or more phases or phases in a project being done in parallel to each other. So they're either starting the same time or they are finishing the same time, but they are having interrelatedness in their frequency of performance, okay? Now note, the deliverables and the phases are part of a generally sequential logic to ensure proper definition of the product of the project to ensure that we are on the right place. Now, do I have a question? If you have a question, you could raise your hand and ask me. I will answer you. If you have a question, you ask me your questions and I will answer you. Now, why am I expecting questions? All right, Mahmoud, please, can you unmute?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I'm trying to see how to relate the project's management process groups with the phases.
Okay.
See that as if they are more of interrelated or interwoven. So I don't know why. I'm trying to see how they are related.
Okay. Okay. Let me go back to this. Like I said earlier on Dix, I said the process groups by default, if you want to carry out a project, by default, the process groups had already given us the different stages that the project will pass through. So a process group or perhaps a phase can also be seen as a stage of a project, but at this point, a major stage of a project, right? So if you look at the process groups, each of them represent a stage in a project. The initiation is a stage. But I now said something. I will quickly want to say here that we are using project management body of knowledge for our instructional materials or as a major reference for instructional materials. However, I would like to categorically state that project management book of knowledge is not a methodology. Rather, it is a guide. It provides us with standards of how our project should be done. Okay, so it is not a methodology on its own, but it is a guide. It provides standards, right? Now, by those keywords they've mentioned in the process groups, which represent the major phases or the major stages in the project, someone could carry out a project and still go ahead with those foundational names or those standard names. But you will agree with me that if you're building a project, if you're having a building project, you don't go saying initiation stage. Rather, you could say preliminary stages or preliminary stage. At that preliminary stage, it is corresponding with the initiation process group, right? Then after those preliminaries and all of that, you now have the time that you have to commission the architect or the civil engineer or the builder to go and design the house while you are planning with him on how to go about the resources. He goes and brings a complete, what we call BOQ, your bill of quantity to you. So you plan with that, all right? Now that forms your planning phase, right? But you might not necessarily call it a planning phase, all right? Then you have the execution phase where you now take them to site and then give the architect or the civil engineer or the builder the required authority by resourcing them to carry on with the project. That becomes the implementation phase. Yes, it is implementation, but we know that the processes on that phase of doing a foundation, laying of block works, and all of that, we know that that particular process in the standard phase is called the execution phase or the implementation phase. Then we'll have the point that you and any other person you appointed will have to regularly go and supervise the project. Go and be sure that they cement the board, they used it, they run the board, they used it, the kind of task they are doing, it is exactly what you ask them to do. That becomes your monitoring and evaluation phase, all right? Then you have the closing phase. The day he will finally tell you that, oh, I'm done. And then you review what you originally planned with him as regards to the technical drawing, the expected output. If it is what he has on ground is what you agreed with him, then you could say, yes, this project is done. Now, by following the engineering approach, you'll find out that you follow the standard of project management, but perhaps you might not have used the standard names. You might have used other professional names or other professional equivalents in your own operations, in your own task management under the project. So when we talk about phases, there is a deep correlation. However, a process group may have multiple phases in it, dependent on the kind of project you are running. I'll repeat this again. A process group, for instance, you have execution process group. Let's assume it's building you're doing, for instance. Under the execution process group, you know that under execution, you have your procurement there under execution. You have your foundation under execution. You have your hiring of resources, human resources to do that under execution. You have your laying of blocks, roofing, and all of that. All of these are under the execution phase, all right? But in your own project, they are forming multiple phases under one process group. So a process group may have multiple phases. At some other instances, a process group could just be in a project, just one phase. Okay, so there is a very good correlation. One thing I would like to remind us again is that the project management body of knowledge, whatever edition you may call it, is not a methodology. Rather, it is a standard, it is a guide, is a sort of template for project managers to follow. And that brings me to this wonderful advice I always give to project managers. After your program, I said it yesterday, after your program, you owe yourself the responsibility to develop yourself technically. You owe yourself the responsibility to develop yourself technically. Technically, you might have the competency-based, that's you know the standards, right? But you owe yourself the responsibility to transform these standards into what works, right? There are so many project managers that since their certification, they know that there is something called a project charter. Yes, they know that this project charter is what authorizes a project manager to go on with a project activity, right? Or a project work. But he cannot design that because the design of that charter is it requires technical skills. And by technical skill, I don't mean drawing. I mean having a practical knowledge of some of these things we are speaking about. Okay, somebody may know that, oh, an OPA is an influence in a project. But when it comes to project, if he has opportunity to undertake a project, he might not really be able to identify which one is actually the OPA, because he understands OPA as a standard, but he doesn't understand OPA as a practice. All right. So I want us to understand this. Every one of us owe ourselves a responsibility to build up ourselves consistently and technically too. Okay, technically too. I used to hear some people say things like, we went for project management class, by the end of the day, we were unable to learn how to develop a project proposal. The truth is, if you're using project management body of knowledge as your standard for reference for lecturing, it doesn't tell people how to develop project proposal. In fact, we don't even talk about project proposals there. We only talk about charters, we talk about project plans. Even with that, it doesn't tell you how to develop a plan. Rather, it provides a standard of what a plan should contain. So it's like giving you a regulatory framework or a checklist framework. That if you have a project plan, this should be there, that should be there, that should be there. Most often, those things that are being said to be there, the languages are used on high level, that if you don't understand in simple terms what those high level definitions are in the project management body of knowledge, you might not be able to understand it practically, like putting them to use practically. All right. So coming back to Mr. Mohammed, like I said, there is by default a standard that tells us that every project must have 5 default phases. So no matter how many phases you have in your project, they have to fall under these 5 categories. You might have multiple phases under a process group. You might have just a single phase under a process group. All right. Thank you. Now, what I said, I know I've said so many things within these few seconds. What I said, does it make sense? Mr. Ibrahim, sorry, Mr. Mahmoud, are you still in the class? Is Mahmoud still in this class? Like I'm not seeing him again. Oh, it's like the network has thrown him out. However, for those of us who heard me, did you understand what the explanation I gave from the question he asked? Did you understand? Please, if you understood, kindly type 22 in the chat room. If you still have questions in this place, because yesterday I said our learning approach is like crescendo. We keep moving from the gradual ones, and then we now move up to high level terminologies and all of that. But in all of what we are going to do, we are not just going to take this project management class as we just know the standards and then pass our exam and that's all. No, we must also build at least, let it be at least 100% competency and then 100% skill. So everything you're going to be learning, let it be that you know the standard and you also know the practice. That's where I'm going to. Right? Okay. Now, project phase characteristics. Each project phase is marked by completion of one or more deliverables. The conclusion of a project phase is generally marked by a review of both key deliverables and project performance to date. This is done to determine if the project should continue into its next phase and dictate and correct errors cost effectively. Note, phase end reviews are often called phase exits, stage gates, or cue points. So after a phase is completed, then we'll take the time to review that particular phase and be sure that it delivered to its objectives before we move on to the next phase. All right. Now, a project life cycle. This is a series of phases that a project passes through from its start to its completion. So a life cycle is the collection of phases from start to finish of the project. It provides the basic framework for managing the project. So you could easily know which phase you are per time and then know at which point is the project is. Is it at initiation stage? Is it at planning stage? Is it at execution stage? Is it at monitor and evaluation stage? Is it at closure stage? Is it at maturity stage? You know, with your life cycle. Now, life cycles can be predictive or adaptive. Within a project life cycle, there are generally one or more phases that are associated with the development of the product, service, or result. That particular section, those particular phases within the entire project life cycle that are concerned with the development of the product, service, or result, those aspects, we'll call them the development life cycle. The development life cycle. Why project life cycle is dealing with the project from beginning to the end. The development life cycle is dealing more with those phases that are concerned with the development, the building of the project, the development of the service, or the result. Okay. Now, for the development life cycle, they could also be predictive, iterative, incremental, adaptive, or a hybrid model. Principally, in project management, you hear things like waterfall life cycle, and then you hear things like hybrid life cycles, and then you hear things like agile life cycles. All right. Now, the waterfall life cycle, they are the traditional models or the traditional life cycles, like the predictive life cycle is a waterfall. Okay. Most often, the waterfall, you would have agreed on the scope, the time, the budget before the project commences. So it doesn't most often factor in changes. Or if there should be a need for change, we have to go back to the change control room or have a change control meeting, okay, to be rest assured if the change is needed or not. But in an agile or in an agile approach or adaptive approach, you integrate change, you speculate change, you anticipate change, even as you are running the project from beginning to the end. Then at some point, you could have a project that is integrated both the predictive and the adaptive, which gives us what we call the hybrid. So at some point of the project lifecycle, you have the predictive, and then at some other point you have adaptive for the agile come into play. All right. Now this is just typical of what we just said. So you have the project lifecycle from beginning to the end. Okay. Not all part of this lifecycle will be involved with the development of the product or the service or the deliverable. So those ones that are concerned with the deliverable, development of the deliverable, we call them the development life cycles. But the entire project cycle is called the project life cycle. And then we'll say the development cycles can be predictive, iterative, incremental, adaptive, or hybrid. Now, quickly, let's look at what each of these has to say. He said, the project life cycle serves to define the beginning and the end of a project. When we are defining a project life cycle, you have to look at things like, okay, maybe project feasibility, that's under project initiation now, business case study development, development of project objectives and all of that. Now, those approaches does not really involve those steps. They do not really involve the development, or they are not contained as part of the phases directly involved in the development of the project. At the end of the day, also you have things like launching of the project, marketing of the project, and all of that. Now, those activities too do not in a way directly impact on the development of the project's product, service, or deliverable. So for those ones that really has to do with development of the project, development of the project's product, phase, or deliverable, we call them the development cycle, life cycle. Okay, so I want us to have this clarity of the differences that could be between them. However, in most contexts, some people just use the two interchangeably: project lifecycle, development lifecycle. Okay. But a development lifecycle, as you can see, is contained in the complete project lifecycle. Note, a subsequent phase is sometimes begun prior to approval of the previous phase deliverables when the risks involved are deemed acceptable. This practice of overlapping is often called fast tracking. So you could fast track the project. Now, common characteristics of project lifecycle: at the beginning, costing and staffing levels are low at the start and move higher towards the end of the project. Probability of successfully completing the project is low at the beginning, higher towards the end as project continues. Stakeholder influences is high at the beginning of the project and then progressively lowers as the project continues. Like I said, we have different project and development lifecycle. Principally, we have two project lifecycles, but inside these two, we have now the development lifecycles that could come up from them. We have two principal project lifecycles. We have the predictive and we have the adaptive. But with the inclusion of the development lifecycles, we now have the iterative lifecycle, we have the incremental lifecycle, we have the adaptive lifecycle, and then we have the hybrid lifecycle. So quickly, let's look at what each of them tries to say to us. For the predictive lifecycle, in a predictive lifecycle, the project scope, time, and cost are determined in the early phases of the project, in the early phases of the lifecycle. Any changes to the scope are carefully managed. Predictive life cycles may also be referred to as waterfall life cycles. So you could see the example of what we have in the diagram. So you finish one phase, you move to the other phase, you move to the other phase, you move to the other phase. So everything is calculatively put in place based on the fact that we've been able to forecast, we've been able to project, and we've been able to estimate. Okay, very, very important. Then we have the iterative life cycle. In an iterative life cycle, the project scope is generally determined early in the project life cycle, but time and cost estimates are routinely modified as the project team's understanding of the product increases. Iterations develop the product through a series of repeated cycles, while increments successively add to the functionality of the product. So an iteration could lead to several releases, like I said. From this example, from the diagram you see here, you can see iteration 1. You would have done design, development, and testing before you could proceed to the next phase, which is iteration 2. You still do design, development, and testing. You go to 3, you go to 4, you go to 5, you go to 6. You keep doing the same thing. All right. Like I gave an instance with Camry yesterday. Camry is just a product, right? From Toyota. But we have Camry 1994, 1997, 1999 or thereabout. They have 2000, 2004, 2006, 7, 8, 9. You have 10, you have 13, 2011, you have 13, you have 14, you have 18, you have 2020, you have 2021. Now, the same product, but it has been going through repeated iterations to have a better version of that product. Okay. Now, let me quickly say that your knowledge of project management will be deepened based on how you're to run iteration on these things we are learning. Yes, we could finish with this in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, but you owe yourself the responsibility to go back, learn again, practice, come back, learn again, till you have come up with a better version of yourself as a project manager. All right, as a project manager. Very, very important. Please, if you have questions, do not cease to ask. Feel free at any point to raise your hand, and I will definitely answer. Okay. Now, before I proceed, can anyone give us an example of iterative lifecycle? Any product that has example of iterative lifecycle? You can use the chat room, you can use your voice, anyone that is most preferred. Can someone give us example? A product that goes through different iterations and then additions keep coming in to make the product better. Okay, Eki, please go ahead.
I would say the Apple iPhone.
Okay, that's a great example. Okay, someone says production of golden mon. Engineer, read what? I would have wanted you to tell us how production of golden mon is iterative. Why the operations are really repeated, but the question I want to ask, does it really come out with improvement anytime they do something? Okay, I think we are beginning to miss operations now with iteration. Okay, we are beginning to miss operation with iteration because some of the examples I'm seeing here are more of operations rather than iteration. Production of golden mon, I would personally view it as an operation. The standard is already created, the process is already created. Now, does the process for each product that comes out, do we have a better version of the previous golden mon? Do we have a better version of the previous Dangote? I think those operations, those systems were really created to maintain effectiveness and efficiency and have operational excellence, okay, across the products, right? But we are talking about a case where you do a product, and then after a while, you could come back, look at the product again, redesign the product completely, the same product, but you're redesigning it completely, you're developing it completely, you're testing it, and you're launching it. It comes out as the same product. You're telling the customer that this is still the same product, but it has now it has better improvement. There are better features added, better functions added, and all of that. Can someone give us more examples? I think Apple is a good example. You have iPhone 12, iPhone 12 Pro Max, you have iPhone 13. Okay, very soon they will soon bring out the iPhone 14. Okay, so can someone give us another example? Remember, I don't just want us to stop at standards. I want us to also have the practical view to what we are learning so that it will be easy for you to apply them in your workplace and perhaps in your personal life. Can I have at least one more example? Okay, Eki, you've given one example before, but I need more people giving example. However, go ahead.
Mercedes.
Mercedes, which of the Mercedes particularly?
Well, they have the different versions. You have like the C class, you have the E class, you have so they've over time, like maybe the E class over years, there's the E200, the E300, the E400, you know, and even in those E200, there has been modifications and change. In the 400, there's also a change. So in each product, there's been iterative life cycle for each of the products,
okay,
and each of the classes of Mercedes.
Okay.
It runs through their whole program, if you look
Okay.
at it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And that's another good example. So someone said Samsung TV. Samsung TV. Samsung TV is really, really generic. I would prefer if you could give me definite product of Samsung TV. Maybe you say Samsung, so. Maybe Android. Samsung Android TV, smart TV. Then you tell us the improvement they've made. It's still the same smart TV, but it's coming out with better versions. Someone said BlackBerry phone. Well, that's a good example also, but let us not just keep it to technology only. There are other, please, someone was raising his hand. Why are you bringing your hand down? Ibrahim, your hand was up. Is this still going to be up or you are taking it down? Okay, but what if we, okay, please go ahead, sir. Ibrahim, please go ahead. Okay, your audio system had gone off. So even if you're going to talk, we won't be able to hear you. So perhaps you check your network and be sure you have a strong network, please. Thank you so much, sir. All right. What of your personal self? How many of us know that our life is a product of iterations? How many of us know? If you know that your life and my life, human life, is a product of iteration. If you know, type 11 in the chat room. If you don't know, type 00 so that we can explain it well. Okay, Mr. Ibrahim, we can only see that your video, your mic is not on. Your audio system is completely gone. So even if you speak, we won't be able to hear you. Okay, so for the people that agree with me that our life is running on iteration, please feel free, share with us, how is our life run iteratively? Please feel free, share with us. Give us an example of how iterations run in the human life cycle, the general life cycle of humans. Yes, Mr. Ibrahim, we actually noticed that you've been having a network issue. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, so your audio system has come back. Are you going to tell us something, or you're going to allow your daughter to talk on your behalf?
Sorry, okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yes. What the reason I pointed at the Samsung TV is because like I use the LED of Samsung, and but after a while I noticed, because when I went to the market, to price other version or other improved version of the TV, I noticed that there were smart TV and the rest of them. So in terms of the audio and the color and there were other features that were actually in the smart TV that makes it a better version, to this other, LED TV and LCD. So they had there was this LCD, there was LED, and now we're having smart. And so it keeps. So there's this kind of progression that they have in terms of their improvements, which and that is why I pointed at Samsung TV. So I just see that as one of the iterative life cycle of the product. So, well, I don't know. Maybe there's something else that you have to. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The instance you gave is wonderful.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned of the LED, the LCD, and now we talk of the smart TV.
Yeah.
Irrespective of the fact that they have smart TV, but they are still improving on their LEDs, coming up with modifications, and then maybe giving it another name, LEDX, LEDY, LEDZ. But at the end of the day, we know that it's LED anyway. Maybe LED flat screen, LED, whatever. All right, thank you so much for bringing up that good example. Now, Engineer Ridwan, I know you want to answer the question, or you want to add to the discussion on how our life itself runs on iteration. Please kindly unmute and go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good evening, sir. Yeah, sir. Good evening, everyone. So, from my own perspective, we all know in one way or the other, we have a goal. We have a goal. In the I want to be a project manager, for example. I have the target, but I don't actually know the actual cost and time I'm going to invest in it. The scope is sure, is certain. This is where I want to be at this height. So, but with some books I read and some of the things I get exposed to, I get to know that APM can actually offer me a good coaching in this field within a year. I can get my CAPM, I can get my lead management program done within, let's say, a year. So now, as I'm improving, because of those things I get exposed to, I get to know that, wow, within a year, I can become a lead project manager. So, and as I keep going, I keep improving. I keep getting better. After that, I want to achieve another thing. So I keep getting better over time. So the aim is to get to that height, but with time, I keep getting better. Even the time taken to get there, we keep reducing, and the cost might keep reducing because I keep getting exposed to relevant informations regarding where I want to be. That's my
That's your humble submission.
yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, Mahmoud, your hand is up. Please kindly go ahead.
Okay, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you for taking the opportunity.
my own perspective about the life being iterative is right from the birth, we all have a goal. And that is why probably some of us, what we want to become is a professional. So we start undergoing certain education from primary to secondary to even the tertiary education. But after that, we realize that no, I still need to add some things so as to become a better professional. So we embark on some trainings. After embarking on such trainings, you realize no, there is still need for more. You also enroll for other. So I think these are the things that makes our life iterative with the same goal of becoming a professional. But time to time, we keep on going through what we have done and then we improve.
Thank you so much. But why didn't we now talk about our life as a good example of iteration? Now, the explanation or the perspective that Ridwan and Mahmoud have brought, they are excellent perspectives to show us that, yes, our life runs on iteration. Our lives run on iteration. IPM had made me so humble. Like, if you work in IPM or you're a faculty in IPM, you will learn to be humble. Do you know why? We've seen professors as high as professor, but he's still running another iteration of his life to achieve another goal. There is one word that both Ridwan and Mahmoud used, and that word is goal. For the fact that there is a goal to change level, there must be need to design, to run the plan and the programs required to meet up with that goal. And as far as you meet up with that goal, you find out that you have to set another one. That in human resource management, there is what we call the goal theory. The goal theory which states that one of the greatest motivation for man is having to set goals. All right. And then in trying to be sure of what kind of goals we are setting, we say the goals should be smart. They need to be specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be attainable. They need to be realistic and need to be time bound. Okay. In IPM, we've had directors of ministries or directors in departments in ministries come to take courses with us. We've seen last year we had a DG in our program, in a live program. And this year we are expecting some permanent secretaries and some DGs and even ministers to come. Right now, why are they coming? Is it just because they just want to come and add to what they know? No, there must have been a defined goal that if this goal is achieved, then obviously there will be a change of level. One of the directors told me that why he came to the program last year is that he's about to retire. And when he retires, he wants to become a consultant. That is a defined goal. He wants to be a management consultant. So he needed to come and get more knowledge on how to be a management consultant so that when he leaves service, he will not be left without relevance. So for the fact that we keep on with goals, we are building, we are setting new targets all the time, it makes our life iterative. We still pass the same circle of events again. Okay. Today, it might be that the need for project management might be for you to get better skills to improve on your working in your work environment. All right. Another person might need it for promotion. Like we had Dr. The woman that was sharing her experience in the platform, Dr. Marcella. Last year, she called me after she had done her program. She called me, and then she was like, she had a meeting with their governor. Previously, when the governor first came into power, the governor told her that she would have been a very good candidate for whatever thing they wanted to do. But I said the governor asked her, do you have any management competency certification or whatever? She said no. Do you have a leadership? She said no. So everything the governor asked her, she said no for that point. So when she saw our program, she got interested, and then she started taking the programs, even forgot what the governor had in mind for her. And she said that last year, that December last year, when she was talking, she said the governor got to meet the governor again. But this time around, she came with a better version of herself. She had gone on iteration and now has a better version of herself. This was a discussion we had around December. By March, okay, by February, they have given her an appointment because she had a better version of herself that had helped her to achieve a bigger goal. All right, so for every iteration we are running with our lives, we still come back to setting new goals, setting plans on how to achieve, setting plans and strategies, financing those plans and strategies, okay, executing them, and then reviewing. Did we get there or did we not get there? We set another one, we keep running those iterations over and over again, okay? Now, I believe this is clear enough. I believe this is clear enough. Do I have any question on iteration? If someone comes to you now and say, give me an example of a project life cycle that is iterative, is there anyone here that you may have challenge giving such an example? I want to ask a question now. The production of Nestle water is iterative in nature. True or false? The production of Nestle water is iterative in nature. True or false? Okay. Someone say true, false. I love these two answers. So let some people say true, let some people say false. Okay. Can someone give us another answer? So let's know who has it now, whether the truths have it or the false has it. Production of Nestle water, someone say true again. So we have two truths. Are we leaving the false to ourselves? So another person say false. So we have two false, two truths. So we need one to be on the lead so that we know who has it. Production of Nestle water, production of Nestle water, production of Nestle water. We're having true, false, true, false. Okay, now I want us to have the keyword there. The keyword is production of Nestle water. Production is the keyword. So for the fact that we are talking about production, automatically it means is an operation. Okay, so we're just repeating the operation. And that operation is just a cycle. It is not really improving on the water. If they like, let them produce the water 100 times. It is still Nestle water, so nothing has changed. Okay, nothing has changed. Okay, but if we say the redesigning of Nestle water pack, is it okay? The redesigning of Nestle water pack is iterative in nature, true or false? What would be your answer to that now? The redesigning of the Nestle water pack is iterative in nature, true or false? Okay, so for the redesigning, obviously it's true because now we are coming up with a better version of the product. But for the production, it's still the same thing we are producing. Nothing has changed. Okay, nothing has changed. All right. So once again, I want to ask, is there anyone here that may not be able to differentiate between operations and life cycles running on iteration, project life cycles running on iteration? Do you need more explanation? We will give more explanation just for the purpose of ensuring that you get it clearly. We know the standard now, but more importantly, let's also get to understand it practically. So when you get to be on the field, you could easily say which operations or which tasks are running iteratively and otherwise. Any question for me? If your hand is up, we'll take it. Okay, so it's not necessarily about that this is your first class, right? We've not talked about this before. We are just talking about this now. Now, for this one, you have listened to, whether it's your first or second or third or last. Did you understand this one? Did you understand iteration? What makes a project life cycle iterative? Do you understand that one? Okay, I think I love the question, the way Mahmoud put it. I think it's better off. It will give us more clarity. Okay, for iteration, iterative life cycle, you're producing a better version of a project deliverable or a project's product. So let's take, for instance, now, you have Camry 2009, and then you want to have Camry 2010. That is a completely new project entirely. The product you're going to have at the end of the day can never be called Camry 2009 because we are moving from 2009 to 2010. So the tasks involved in coming up with Camry 2010 from 2009, that is a project. But in this case, we already have a release of this 2010, previously as 2009, but now we've done further analysis, we've come up with better designs, we've decided to add more functions, more functionalities, more features that will get it maybe much more comfortable, economical, higher performance than the 2009. Now, that transition from 2009 to 2010 is an iterative project. The same thing you did to come up with 29, that's the same thing you will do to come up with 2010, but just that 2010 has more added benefits than 29. Now listen, the continuous production of 29, irrespective of the fact that we have 2010, is an operation. Because in that case, we are not adding anything new. We are just repeating the process that gave birth to 29. That's an operation, all right? And why are we doing that? So that we can satisfy the need of those who still think that 29 is better off, or perhaps do not have all the resources to get 2010. Now, the day we decide to move from 2010 to 2011, 2011 becomes another project running on the same cycle that 2010 passed through. Okay, but is a new project now because we cannot call it 2010 again. We're going to call it 2011 based on the added features and the redesigning we are coming up with, and then all of that. But the continuous production of 2010 to make sure that people still get to have 2010 makes it an operation. Operation is the day-to-day activities involved in a business. Iteration, the repetitive tasks or phases carried out within a project to have a version of a product, a project's product. So Mahmoud, do you get the difference between these two? If you don't understand, feel free to tell me you don't understand, I will explain more. But if I'm going to explain more, that will be in camera. Mahmoud, are you with me? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Kingsley Mosu, I trust with the question that Mahmoud asked, I trust you would have gotten better clarity on iteration. Okay. Now quickly, the next one is the one we have incremental. Now, I would like us to pay very grave attention to this, because sometimes we confuse iterative with incremental. We confuse iterative with incremental. We confuse iterative with incremental. Both of them are agile in nature. Both iterative and incremental, they are agile in nature. Okay, they are agile in nature. All right. Now, what makes the difference between iteration and incremental? In an incremental life cycle, the deliverable is produced through a series of iterations. Now, look at it. Through a series of iterations that successively add functionality within a predetermined time frame. While both are synonymous, okay, but incremental has a defined time that this iteration will come out, this version of this product will come out. For instance, in project management body of knowledge, we know that after every 3 years, you have to get a new version. They release a new version, and by default, you're supposed to go for recertification after 3 years, all right? Either a recertification or go for continuous development workshop on project management so that you can be on par. That is, and then we are expecting that as that one is coming out, we are having things added. We might not know exactly what is going to be added, but we know that obviously 7th edition is going to be something added on 6th edition, and 8th edition is going to be something added. We are expecting the 8th edition now around 2024, right? We expect that something added, another new things added regarding to standards, new things added regarding to competencies and all of that, okay? The process involved in iteration is the same process involved in incremental, but like I said, the only difference here is that for incremental, it is bounded by time. Okay, it is bounded by time. It is bound within a time frame. Okay, the frequency of change is the same. Okay, take for instance, you have Toyota, you have Camry. I think they have 1994, then they have 1996, 1998. I doubt if there was any 1999. Then they went into 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. I doubt if there is any 2004 and 5, or there is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know about 11, but I don't know about 12, but I know 13. I don't know about 14. I don't know about 15. I don't know about 16. I don't know about 17, but I know there's 18, and there is 19. I don't know about 20. There is 2021, and now there is a 2022 already out. Now, if this is actually how the releases came, then that means the time frame was not definite. Okay, so we could say, based on explanation, they had iterative cycles producing more of what they want. But if you look at something like Apple, their iterations are defined. Okay, their iterations are defined. So you have Apple, well, they said there is no Apple 9, iPhone 9, right? So I don't know whether, I'm not a user of iPhone, so I don't know whether it's true or not. So for those of us that use iPhone, is there iPhone 9 or not? And then coming to Microsoft, also you have Microsoft Windows. I think they said also there is no, of course we know there is no Windows 9. We only have 8, we have 7, 8, 10. I think 10 is still the, whether 10 is still the highest we have now, I don't know. I think majorly the one we use. So incremental is within a predefined time. The deliverable contains the necessary and sufficient capability to be considered complete only after the final iteration. Okay, so there's always a time bound for this. Now the next one is adaptive lifecycle. The key word there is adaptive, right? And anytime we talk about adapting, is mostly about managing changes. All right. Now, the adaptive lifecycle are also referred to as agile life cycles. And now part of the agile life cycles are the iterative and the incremental life cycles. Now the detailed scope is defined and approved before the start of an iteration. Adaptive life cycles are also referred to as agile or change-driven life cycle. Now in this whole process is more on, apart from the general project management processes we have to go through, initiation, planning, whatever, it definitely must put into consideration speculation, anticipation for change along the borders of the project constraints. Okay, and then there is always requirement for collaboration. In a situation where there is change, you might have to feel, or you might have to know within yourself that, oh, this one, no, based on the need, only us might not be able to do this. So let's find collaborators. Okay, now find collaborators. You find collaborators. And after collaboration, you learn, you move on to the next phase. Okay, so the adaptive lifecycle allows us to speculate, allow us to collaborate, allow us to learn, and then we keep that way. We speculate, we anticipate change, we collaborate in order to manage the changes as they come, and then we learn and then move on. Keep on like that. That's adaptive lifecycle. Then we now have what we call the hybrid lifecycle. The hybrid lifecycle is just a combination of waterfall approaches versus agile approaches, or the waterfall approaches versus the agile approaches. All right, joining them together. So you have a project. In some phases, they are waterfall or predictive in nature. At some other points, they are agile or agile or adaptive in nature. And then you have the other side too. So a hybrid life cycle is a combination of predictive and adaptive life cycles. Those elements of the project that are well known or have fixed requirement follow a predictive development life cycle approach. And those elements that are still evolving follow an adaptive development life cycle. So this is an example of what we have here. So you have things like planning and initial requirements analysis and design. That could be under waterfall. But when you now go to running the Scrum, that's iteration planning, update project backlog, and then define iteration backlog, which will have to go through design, build, test, and then you have the partial UAT, that's the user interface view. Then you go to working on the software, review of the process, you come back to iteration planning, updating of the project backlog, and then defining the iteration backlog again. You run through the same agile sprint, have the product release and all of that, and it keeps going that way. Okay, it keeps going that way. So some projects could have hybrid projects, hybrid development life cycles in place. And most often we find that in the technological world or in the technology world. Now, before I go to the next definition, do I have any question, any contribution, any concern? Please let me know. Please let me know, let me know, let me know. Any question, any contribution? Please let me know. All right, before we proceed, can we take 2 minutes break? And then when we come back, we'll continue. Just 2 minutes, please. Just stretch out, take a cup of water and come back. Thank you. Now, if you look at the diagram we have there, you see that after phase 1, we did a phase gate. Before we move to phase 2, we now did gate 2, we did phase 3, gate 3, and then we'll keep doing that till we get to the final, the last phase, and then we'll do the last gate before we could accept the project. So the first gate is actually a review to be sure that that particular deliverable from that phase is what is expected. And it was done according to budget, according to expected performance, quality requirements, and all of that. All right, so it is held at the end of a phase. So if you look at other terms that are used there, we said phase review, which is understandable. Then stage gate, understandable. Queue point, that's you complete, is a point where you finalize on a particular phase before moving to another. Then another one is phase entrance. So before it could give you permission to go to the next phase, there must have been a stage gate conducted. And another one said is phase exit, right? So I think these are all understandable. Now, quickly, let's look at some other definitions like work performance data. The work performance data, the key word there is data. Data. Anytime you hear of data, data is the raw information. Data is the information that has not been analyzed. So you could not, you cannot definitely make decisions with that, right? Now, work performance data is the raw observations and measurements identified during activities performed to carry out the project. So they are just raw data. So you could be having things like maybe the time people come to work versus the time they go. You're taking record of that. How long it took them to do the work, you're taking record of that. The cost implication for a particular task, you're taking record of that. But those information have not been analyzed as compared to what the plan said. So you may not be able to use them to make justification on the project performance, as it were. Okay, so you only have raw data on how the project is going. You have the work performance information, which is just the opposite of the performance data. The performance information is the data that have been reformed, the data that have been transformed, and now it has been analyzed and can be used to make decisions for the project. Okay, it can now be used to make decisions for the project. Then you have the work performance report. The work performance report, the physical or electronic representation of work performance information compiled in project document, which is intended to generate decisions or raise issues, actions, or awareness, right? So we start from data, then this data is analyzed to give us information, and then this information is reported on through different representative approaches. Then another keyword here is methodology. Methodology is a system of practices, techniques, procedures, and rules used by those who work in a discipline. Now, like I said earlier, project management body of knowledge, no matter the edition, is not a methodology. Rather, it is a standard, right? It's a guide. So I want us to know that. But when you now begin to develop methodologies in your own field, following the standards of project management, we can now say, okay, that's the best practice in that field. Okay, that's the best practice in engineering. That's the best practice for construction. That's the best practice for electrical. That's the best practice for pharmacy. That's the best practice for the event and all of that. Now we have tailoring. Tailoring is selection of processes, tools, and techniques, inputs or outputs required for a given project. It's important for us to know that every project is different from each other, even the iterative projects, right? We need to know that they are different from each other. So what that means is that for every project, we need to choose the right processes, the right tools, the right techniques, inputs, or outputs required for that particular project. Okay, that's what tailor is all about. Making sure that we are using the right approaches, the tailor-made approach, tailor-made processes, tools, people, and all of that to deliver to the project's outcome. That's tailoring. Okay. This project we're doing here is tailored to those who may want to take professional trainings but do not have all the time to attend weekday, and even if they have the time on weekend, they might not be available within the location of training. So this approach is tailored to those kind of people, and it has to meet the objective. If we say the method of training, the standard of training, please, now look at this. The standard of training is that there must be a venue, right? But to some extent, we say conducive venue, all right? There should be a conducive venue. There should be refreshment, which is secondary anyway, but there must be content, there must be facilitation, and there must be training, all right? There must be evaluation, and there must be assessment of the whole training. Now, this whole approach we follow here is still meeting up with all the standards. However, the approach, the methodology is different from the methodology of saying, okay, everybody must come together, all right? It's not the same as pre-recording, okay? It's a different approach, yet it could be an online training, but it's different from pre-recording. So this is tailor-made to the people that needs it. So every project should have their own tailor-made approaches, tailor-made methodologies, right? Do I have any question here? Before we go to talking about the other things, do I have any question? Any question for me? Any question for me? Okay, Mahmoud, please kindly go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, I missed out the first type of the project life cycle. So I just want you to mention it for me. I only met the second one, that's iterative life cycle. So the first one, please.
Okay, we have the predictive.
Okay, thank you.
We have the iterative, we have the incremental, we have the adaptive, then we have the hybrid.
Okay, so the first one is predictive.
Yes, this is the first one, predictive.
Okay.
Then the second one is the incremental. Sorry, the iterative, then we have the incremental, we have the adaptive, and we have the hybrid.
Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, before we go into this next section, because when we go into this particular phase, I will be getting much more practical on certain things. I will be talking to you from the field point of view, rather than the standard point of view only. So we'll be combining both standards and practice, right? But before we proceed, I will allow you 5 minutes. This is 5:05 from my time. So by 5:10, we'll be reconvening. The class is not shutting down. So just 5 minutes. I believe with the little we've already had, some of us now, our head could be doing somehow. So please take a cup of water and stretch yourself well. We have 2 minutes only, so I doubt if you really stretch. So 5 minutes, stretch a little, drink water, and then we'll come back. Use. Now, before I proceed, do I have any question on the last class? On the last thing we just talked about? Do I have any question? Okay. I will be anticipating question and contribution. Meanwhile, let's proceed. Now, I want you to listen to me clearly. When you go for contracts or when you go for projects, you want to go submitting contracts and committing some contract documents or the like. We have basically 3 contract documents that we use. So I may be using some words interchangeably, like project management, contract management. There is a difference, but there are a whole lot of similarities. Now, when you go for contracts, you are expected to have 3 documents, 3 major documents. The first one is what we call request for information. If you look it up on the dailies, you see things like expression of interest. You see things like request for information. Okay, so expression of intent, letter of intent. Okay. At another point, you see things like request for proposals, or defaultly, it's a proposal. Send us your proposal. And at another point, you hear things like financial bid, or they will tell you to send us the budget for your proposal, the budget proposal. So these enterprise environmental factors and organizational process, I said, they are critical whenever you start developing those documents. And we'll see in absolute terms how they play a major role in deciding whether you're going to be the preferred contractor or consultant for this project. All right. I trust you could still see my screen. Please, if you can still see my screen, kindly type 11 in the chat room. If you can see my screen, please kindly type 11 in the chat room. All right, thank you. Now, the enterprise environmental factors refer to conditions not under the control of the project team that influences, constraint, or direct the project. These conditions can be internal and or external to the organization. EFs are considered as input to many project management processes, specifically for most planning processes. Remember, I said these things will determine whether you're going to be the one selected for that project or not. These factors may enhance or constrain project management options. In addition, these factors may have a positive or negative influences on the outcome. So there is something we are going to do now. The thing is that I am going to leave you to draft out your company's EFs. Now, the first document, which we refer to as request for information. Sorry, I want to share something here. But before I share anyway, let's see some things here. I believe you can still see my screen. Okay, someone asked, what are the other documents required for contract? I said there are three major of them. You have request for information, RFI. You have request for proposal, RFP. Then you have request for quote, that is RFQ. In the default terms, you call them expression of interest, that's for RFI. Then you have proposal, or what we call the technical bid. Technical bid, that's where you have your proposal. Technical bid, your proposal. Technical bid, that's the normal name, we'll call it in the Nigerian context. Okay, we'll call it technical bid, but that is your proposal. And then we have the other one we call financials, or request for quote. Request for quote. Engineering side, they call it bill of quantity, but technically it is called request for quote. Some say it's request for quotation, but we call request for quote, RFQ, or what would traditionally call your financial bid. Financial bid. Now, your technical bid, or perhaps your expression of interest or request for information, has more of your company's profile. So it gives full information of the capacity, your company's capacity, or as a consultant, your personal capacity to undertake a particular project that has been advertised, or that your help is needed. Your request for information is to provide enough information to prove that you as a person or your company have the capacity. And when we talk about capacity, you are trying to provide evidence of registrations, licenses, evidence of work done, evidence of collaborations, evidence of experience, and all of that. You're trying to provide those as evidence. You're trying to provide the evidence of your assets. If it is a bid that will require you proving your assets, then it means that you're trying to prove an evidence, or provide an evidence that yes, you have the capacity by equipment, by systems, by processes, by procedures to deliver. Okay, that's what you're trying to provide. You provide information to show that yes, you have the right capacity of personnel to do that work. That's what your request for information contains. So let me give you an example. This will be sent to everybody later on. We'll still come back to this anyway, but I just want to show you how important your EFs are and your OPAs are in designing these things. Now you have project bid documents. You have the first one, request for information, RFI. Now, what does it want? Number one, your company executive summary, your company vision, mission, and core objectives or core values, your company governance systems. That's to talk about your culture, your structure, and your administrative regards and all of that. They want to see. Then your company services. Yes, we want to know whether what we are doing is in line with what you do as a company or as a person. Then company infrastructure assets. Like I said, if it is consulting, then you have to provide enough information to show that yes, you can provide the assets or facilities needed. If it is a contract work, please note, a contract work, I'm not talking of services, work, construction, drilling, work, right? According to contract management, we have two kinds of contracts. We have works and we have services. Okay, we have, to some, they divide it into three. They have works, they have services, and they have goods. If it is work to be done, like construction, and all of that, we consider that as work, contract work. If it is supply, procurement, we consider that as goods. If it is consulting services or consulting or training, we consider that as services. Now, there are different procurement standards or different contract standards for any of this, whether it is work, services, or goods. But whichever way, the standard still remains that whichever one you want to go for, there must be request for information, all right? There must be expression of interest. You must have your company profile to show us whether you have the capacity to deliver, all right? So if you're running on services, then you have to provide us enough information to show that you have the facilities needed to deliver such service, or you can get such facilities available. If it is for goods, then you must have some insurance clearance to prove that in case of procurement of these goods, the importation or the exportation of this good that we are trying to get for you, in case of anything, there is an insurance covering it that, yes, we'll recover our money back. So part of your infrastructure, as for the person whose contract level is for goods, you need to have your insurance clearance, okay? And then you need to have your you need to have bank there's what they call it, an approval letter that a bank gives you to say yes, they will finance your project if you get the contract. So there must be some kind of financial partnership for the project. Okay, these are part of the things you provide on the infrastructure base, right? Then also company experience relevant to the project at hand. Then company personnel, your management team, and your project team. You're going to be providing these people on the basis of their technical competencies, their special competencies, their specialized knowledges, their certifications, their licenses, their experiences. Okay, you're going to provide all of this, all right, on the company's personnel. There was a project we just for those people that attended in class, who had templates, we showed them. Let me see if I will see one. Let me see if I will see one. I'm trying to see if I will get one. One of the last proposals sent, so that this is about 1 plus 1. Where would that one be? Sorry, I'm not seeing exactly what I want to share with you. I'm not seeing the exact one I'm looking for here. But I have the printouts in the office. So these are some of the information we expect that you should have in your project document for request for information. Then you have those compliance accreditation. Now, listen, this is where the EF is coming in. Now, see the compliance, the accreditations, the licenses, the partnerships. Most often, they have great role on the project. For instance, if you take Nigeria as a case, there is no federal ministry, no federal agency, no federal department that will ever give you a contract if you don't have all the clearance certificate, all the compliance certificate, ITF, NSITF, PENCOM, then dependent on whether your good service or works. If it is works, then you have to go and get your current NSE If it is services, you have to go and get your NITAD, CIPM. Specifically, you have to become an accredited management consultant with the necessary bodies in Nigeria. If it is goods, then you have to go and register with procurement people, those procurement compliance agencies, and have their compliance. If you don't have those compliances, no matter how good you are, they will never give you that project. Okay, they will never give you that project. Then at some point, you, apart from having your compliance certificate or compliance clearance papers, you still need to get your accreditation. You still need to get what? Your accreditation. For instance, us working as a professional institute in Nigeria, we have licenses, but we still have our accreditation. We have first to be approved by the Federal Ministry of Education, and then we have to be accredited by the Nigerian Council for Management Development before we can come out as a management certification firm, or a management certification institute rather. Okay, so apart from the federal approvals, we still have to go for accreditations and then licenses that are renewable. We renew our licenses. If not, your certificate will become invalid. And then we'll be asked to leave the market. And then partnerships also. Tell us the people who collaborate with you. In IPM, for a case, we have both international and local partners. For instance, in this program you're running now, project management, we've told you earlier, by the time you're done with your program and then you want to get your chartered project management certification, we have Chartered Institute of Management Consultant USA that can give that to you directly without you having to write any additional exam. That is the benefit of collaborations or partnerships. We are currently working on another collaboration or working on some collaborations for the purpose of launching our MBA and DBA programs. Okay, so most projects require that you provide evidence or provide all of this in your request for information. All you want to do is provide enough information that will qualify you as the best candidate for that work. All right. Then when you go to the next one, which is the request for proposals, then you have the breakdown. I will still come to this later on. Okay. Now let me go back to my slide so that I can then explain further. Now, can you see my slides? Please, if you can see my slides very well, kindly type 1 in the chat room. I'm not talking of the document, I'm talking of the slides. Enterprise environmental factors, types of enterprise environmental factors. Okay. Now, for the ones that are internal to the organization, and then you can now compare them to the information we have in our RFI, and then you see that your internal EF is a replica of what your strengths are that you can use for quantifiable information for your RFI. So what are they? Your organizational culture, your structural governance, your geographical distribution of facilities and resources, infrastructure, IT software, resource availability, and employee capability. Now, by standard, if I just tell you this, you have the knowledge, but by practice, you might not understand what it means. But having shown you a typical template of what this means, I believe when you're building your request for information, that it is easy for you to use this template and then work it out, right? If you're asked to do an RFI now, is there anybody here that it would be difficult for you to come up with the components, verifiable components of what they should look like? I want to place it on the, please. Who is this person that is not wearing shade? Oluwase Ibrahim. Please kindly put off your video or kindly dress well. We know the heat is too much, but kindly put up your clothing, or better off, put off your video. Okay, so these are some of the information we need, right? Now, your company executive summary, your company vision, company mission, company core values, your governance system, your structures, and all of that. If you compare it with what I am showing you here, you find that they are relatively the same thing. The internal EFs. Then on the external EFs, you have market conditions. So you want to provide us with those experiences. You want to provide us with your partnerships to show that, yes, you have advantage over the market. Then the socio-cultural influences. Okay, you want to provide us evidences to show that, yes, you have relevant experiences that can balance off on the socio-cultural influences on that particular project. The legal compliances and restrictions, you're already providing them, government and industry standards, physical environment considerations, then the financial consideration. Do you need to bring in a bank on partnership? Do you need to get an approval from bank to show that, yes, you can? Now, commercial databases. There are some projects that will require that you have access to the kind of people that project is designed for. So do you have access to such commercial databases? Okay, for such projects, you have to provide those information to us. Okay, so if I go back again, you will find out that basically what we have here is what has been structured in what we refer to as our EFs. So EFs, to a great extent, to a very large extent, determine if you will be selected or not. Now, do I have a question? I know I should have a question, so please feel free to ask me your question. This is now a practical side of what we are learning. I've given you the standard, I've given you the practice. So I've given you, if you want to develop, a request for information, it's easy for you because I've already shown you the standard, right? Okay, don't worry, that document will be uploaded in the Google Classroom so you can download and start working on your assignment, your project work. Please, I need questions here now. This is, I think for me, this is where your work number one starts, developing an RFI, okay? And now I'm talking of RFI, using an EF as a case study. Questions, please. Please don't tell me to move on, no, because I need to be sure that you understand this area. This is a practical side of, this is a practical side there. Now, apart from the way I've put it on the template I showed, you can also use these headings here. Okay, you can use the headings for developing your RFI, okay, or doing an analysis of your organization to find out if you're capable, you're qualified for that. Okay, Mahmoud, please go ahead.
Yes, sorry, my question is this. These documents that you mentioned, is there any situation where you may not necessarily be requested to submit all? Probably one or two of them is only required.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's a very beautiful question. Now, you know, those days that we started HR newly, one of the courses we did then was recruitment and selection. Ordinarily, the document you need for a complete recruitment exercise is that number one, there should be a cover letter, then there should be CV, okay, and then consequently you can have your appreciation letter. That's from you, the applicant. But at some point, we'll say, a point will come, the company will just tell you, send us your CV. There is this golden rule that we always say, never send a CV without a cover letter. Never send the CV without the cover letter. The same thing applies here. A company could call you and tell you, send us a proposal on so project. There is no way you can do that, complete that proposal without giving an information about your capacity to deliver on that project. We call it capability statement. So there must be proof of capability. Apart from the technical work you want to do, there must be proof of capability. Even if you are not giving us all of this information, but at least you should be able to tell us who you have worked, the kind of project you've worked on, maybe for the past 3 years, relevant to the work we want to do, then the kind of people you've worked for. That enough should be able to tell us if we can continue or not. So please, your proposal, your company RFI should always be ready at all times. You should have your company document, your company, if for those of us going into contract, there's what we call contract document. You keep them in one place, you produce them and keep them in one place, especially what we call the company profile or the RFI in this case. Keep your profile so that anytime you hear contract is happening, that's the first thing you submit. Then subsequently you can then come up with your proposal. But however, in any case, they say send us only proposal. Please ensure to add your RFI. And in most cases, for Nigeria as a case, when some companies say send us your proposal, they simply mean you put everything together. Your RFI, your proposal, your technical bid, and your budget all should be in one place. So you see, there is necessarily no way you can send one and leave the other. So it's either you're sending all at once, or you're sending two in one, or you're sending it individually according to the requirement of the organization. If it is a federal contract or state contract, sometimes they will make announcement and say expression of interest. They make it specific, expression of interest. So in that case, you're not sending proposal because they didn't even tell you what the work is. They only told you that they have some work they want to do and they need consultants or contractors in this area. Interested people should send their EOI, expression of interest to so. So in that case, you don't know what the project is, so you can't even talk about proposal and budget. Okay, while some others, they would have announced or publicized what the work is, what the service is, or what the goods to be procured are, and then on the requirements for partaking in the project, they would now mention that, okay, you need to have your CAC, you need to have your NSITF. They are now telling you what you should have given them should you have sent your EOI before. So you can't still send it without giving them your capability profile. Okay, Mahmoud, what I said now, does it make sense to you?
Yes, very clear.
Okay, thank you so much. I need more questions. So this is where the practice is, because this very, very soon after, if your company has never asked you to do development of profile before, company profile, or never asked you to develop expression of interest, by the time you go and tell them that you just finished project management, they automatically believe that you should be able to develop an EOI or RFI. So if you have questions now, ask me, I'm here now, before we go over to the next one. Okay, I believe you are giving me the permission to move forward. Now, organizational process assets is the next thing. The organizational process assets, the OPAs, are the plans, processes, procedures, and knowledge bases specific to and used by the performing organization. So if you check very well, your EEF comprise more of the basic information you need to give to prove your capability to deliver. Why the OPAs provides the contractee with the information on the processes, the approaches, the methodologies that you will use to deliver. So your OPA purely represents more of your technical bid. That proposal, that one we call request for proposal. Your request for proposal gives more detail on your OPAs, your strategies, your methodologies, your policies, your procedures, maybe policies of payment, policies of reimbursement, policies of change management, and all of that. You have to put all those things, okay? And then you're going to provide more insight on your company knowledge base, okay? Knowledge base, that's historical information regarding to previous work done and the what do you call it now? The outcomes you've had. In most cases, they will ask you, the contracting organization will ask you to provide 3 references. That's going to your knowledge base now. Provide 3 references that can prove that, yes, you've done similar work before. So you go back to your knowledge base or your commercial base and then get those people essentially. Those people have to validate if you really have that knowledge you're talking about, that experience you're talking about, that outcome you've been boasting about. They have to give this new contracting organization a clue on whether to go ahead with you or not. Okay. Quite a number of people here we are recommended to us. Okay, I know people like Ademolu was recommended. I know Eki was recommended. Now, those people recommending you to us are now serving as our referees, and they are forming part of our OPAs. Okay, they are forming part of our OPAs. These assets influence the management of the project. OPAs include any artifact, practice, or knowledge from any or all of the performing organizations involved in the project that can be used to execute or govern the project. The OPAs also include organizational lessons learned from previous projects and historical information. OPAs may include completed schedules, risk data, end value data. OPAs are inputs to many project processes. You see, all these things we are talking about here, these are evidential proofs that the person that want to give you a job now, the organization that want to give you the contract now, they want to be sure, okay, that yes, you've done similar things before. Okay, now for those of us that do government contracts, you will notice that at some point for some agencies, they will ask you to provide templates. Give us templates of previous work you've done. Let's be sure whether it is up to what we want. So we even tell you in your technical proposal, they will ask you to provide a template to describe your understanding of the project that you want to give or the project you want to undertake. Okay. All right, Eki, your hand is up. Kindly unmute and go ahead.
Yes, in this OPAs, it says you have to include information on now for a new company
sorry,
seeking to enter the market.
Eki, your network just napped at some point. So if you don't mind, can you please start afresh so that I can hear you?
Okay, I said the OPAs where it's saying as a requirement to document your experience in other jobs done.
Yeah.
What if it's a new company trying to get into the market? How do you get around that?
Okay, thank you so much. Now, OPAs, you can generate OPA from the team of people you're working with. So your company might not have had the experience, but your team on individual basis might have had the experience. So when you are now talking about, remember here, look at this place, internal on the EFs. The last point on internal EFs, we have employee capability. Employee capability. Now, you might not have had this historical experience as a company, but your employees, your teammates, your partners, your collaborators, they have that particular experience. So you can use their experience in building your profile. Then why putting those companies or those individuals as part of your management team, describing their competencies? Okay, let me say, having their CVs in your company profile. So you have their CVs, and then you're using their experiences to benchmark your own inefficiencies. Okay, Eki, what I said now, does it make sense to you? Eki, where are you? Eki, does it make sense?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
it makes sense. Thank you.
All right, all right.
Thank you.
But as you do that, then subsequently, please make sure you document your experiences. And please, I will sound it loud and clear. Thank you for bringing that up. If you are a startup company in Nigeria, make sure you play by your compliance. Go and do all your compliance certificates. In Nigeria, we say you need at least 3 years before you go for federal contracts or state contracts, as the case may be. But please don't wait for the 3 years before you go to ITF to ask them for your clearance certificate. Don't wait for 3 years before you go to PENCOM, because I know what I'm telling you. If you wait till 3 years and you go for those certificates, you might be crying at the end of the day, because the money they will be calling, you'll be paying penalties, and then you'll be paying for the number of years you did not do the clearance certificate. And then you'll be considering, should I close the company and start another one? If you start another one, you have to wait for 3 years again. You'll now be considering, should I bring in new investors who will now bring in the money that we use and register? Another thing, do you have the background information about those investors? How do you trust them? What kind of relationship have you built over the years that will make you feel like they should be part of your board? Okay, and then some people begin to consider, should I go to the bank and borrow? Okay, what if you borrow from the bank and the contract at the end of the day, you didn't get it? How do you balance up? So to avoid all of those things, please make sure from this moment onwards, start clearing your papers gradually. Start clearing them gradually. All of the benefits that come from compliance still goes back to you and your organization. Nothing goes to government. If you're paying your PENCOM, updating your PENCOM, it still goes back to your staff and to you as a person. If you're paying your ITF, you're reducing the cost of training your staff, so it still goes back to your staff. If you are doing your NSITF, your insurance, it still goes back to you and your staff. If you're doing your tasks, okay, it's only tasks that in Nigeria, we don't really know the value, but we still pay anyway. So just pay, okay, just clear those things. Do I have another question? I just want to be easy, and let's get these things clearly. Okay, when we get it clearly, I can comfortably go and sleep, so that tomorrow, if you have a project, you will not be sweating from the center of your head. You'll not be wondering, are you still a project manager? Okay. All right. Now, primarily, organizational process assets are divided into two. You have the processes, policies, and procedures. So when you are building your technical proposal, obviously, you're now going to talk about the processes you're going to use in delivering that project, the policies involved, and then the procedures, okay? And then your templates, for organizations that require your templates, you provide your templates, okay? Then for those that, if it is a safety work, if it is a safety, organizational-based safety work, like oil and gas safety, then you need to provide your guidelines, okay? Some projects require that you provide guidelines, and the guidelines, you have timelines, okay? For your corporate knowledge base, your risk register, your lessons learned register, your past project files, your historical information, if you have mentors, if you want to use your mentors as part of your OPA, why not? You put them as part of your OPA, mentors, collaborators, partners, and all of that. Put them there. Okay, your building profile. Okay. Okay. we just have 6 minutes to, okay, 8 minutes to 6 p.m. So within schedule. Any question for me? Is there something you would like me to explain further? I will humbly, cheerfully, willingly do so. Any question for me, please? Okay, is there anyone here who doesn't have a group yet? You don't have a group yet. I know one person okay, 2 people joined us today. So we are going to add these 2 people to group. That's Kingsley and Aliki. So we are going to add you to a group. Apart from Kingsley and Aliki, is there anyone here who doesn't have a group? The group has already been shared in the Google Classroom. So if you don't have a group, can I see your hand up? Put your hands up in the put your hands up in the air. If you don't have a group, let's see your hands up. And in case you have not officially joined this our class online, please be sure to join the Google Classroom. Okay. So Professor Tai will say there are only 2. I intentionally made you people 2 because in that only you is a group. So you are the chairman of that group and the other person is the secretary. So you people will get constituency members very soon. Okay, so if you're not in the Google Classroom, I just posted the link in the chat room. Kindly click on it and join. Okay. Now for the groupings, I think we have the groups somewhere. Okay, so these are the groups. Group 1, Ademola read 1. Although Ademola has taken his class in person, so he might not be actively involved in the online, but if he so wishes to do his own work with the online group, why not? You're welcome. Group 2, Mohammed Mahmoud Katun and Taiwo Adenigon. 2 of you already is enough for that group. And then 3, we have Oluseun. No. Group 2 is like your trio. Group 1 is Ademola Ridwan, Eki Osin, and Folorenshaw Shehu. Group 2 is Mahmoud Katun, Taiwo Samuel Adenigon, and then 3, Oluwaseun Ibrahim. That's the person is still on group 2. Then group 3, we have Sunday Ube, Roger Abang, and then Ebun Imani. So I will only edit this and then add our new converts. So because of read 1, I will add Kingsley. I think I'm done with this class, so I can stop my record.